welcome everybody to another episode of the Most Important Conversation. September, how are you doing today?
Doing great today. Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fabulous with the exception of the sneeze on the tip of my nose. So if I sneeze during this recording, that's just forewarning. Trigger warning. Apparently,
Yeah.
you got to do trigger warnings today. So if anyone's offended that I might sneeze, you've been warned. Okay. Aside from that, what are we talking about today? What have you got on your mind that we want to kind of dig into?
But I'd like to talk about the state of flow because it was recently that we had a conversation where I was feeling frustrated with the lack of flow, that
Mm.
there things were not falling into place in my timeline, in the timeline that I would like to see it in. But I would say after that conversation, we've actually stepped into more states of flow. And if you recall, there was some things on my part that I needed to do, right? I was being the victim that things were not falling into place. Oh, things are not happening as fast as I want them to, and allowing myself to feel a victim of that. But then having the awareness that, oh, well, there's some steps that I could be taking. There's some things that we could be doing. And from that conversation, there has been so much flow. So much things are falling into place. We're having really powerful conversations with individual team members. The projects and the vision of things are really coming together nicely to create a full picture for us all to get on the same page with. And all the pieces feel like they're starting to come together. And we've been at this for 3 years.
Hmm.
Years. And it feels like we're experiencing that moment of wanting things to come together, and you're feeling the energy of that all start coming together to create something amazing.
Well, when I think of flow, and there's been many books written about it, I simply relate to it as when you're feeling powerful. When you're feeling powerful, you feel in flow. It's perception, because the idea of flow is not that everything in your life is working perfectly in the time that you want it. That's not necessarily what's going on. What's going on is the way you relate to what's going on and your sense of being feeling powerful about what's going on. And when you approach life that way, you'll notice something funny will start to happen, which is that those things that you wanted to go in a certain direction or happen in a certain amount of time start ticking into place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, the only thing that changed between the non-flow and the flow is that you felt powerful. And when we feel powerful, we step into that power and we take action. We take action because we feel empowered to do so. We feel powerful, so we're able to do so. And so flow states are a state of mind and a state of being, and they're not circumstantial. They're not based on what's going on outside of you. Nothing ever is. I mean, that's kind of one of our big things, right? Is that we as human beings spend so much time trying to rearrange the furniture of our life, thinking we can control all of this, when the only control that we have is over ourself, who we're being, where we're coming from, and whether we're operating from the state of being a victim or whether we're operating from the state of being powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one step that starts to activate power in people, and it's a longer talk to go into power, but taking full responsibility for oneself and one's actions and how they're showing up, who they're being, and the actions they're taking is the first step towards activating one's power. Because until you're willing to do that, you're a victim of all these other people and circumstances and events. And it's just a mind shift is all it is. As soon as you start working on yourself, you start to generate power. As soon as you sit back and look out in front of you at your life, at the people, at the circumstances, or whatever, and start to put that as an excuse for why you can't do whatever, then you've dropped back into being a victim, and there's a total loss of power in that. And that becomes its own debilitating cycle downward if you don't nip it in the bud and catch it. So what happened in our internal. Now, yeah, we have been working on this for 3 years, but not as diligently as we have the last 6 months.
Absolutely.
But in the last 6 months, we went through a kind of a period of about 3 months, 4 months, where things were going slow. And things were, it's just the typical ebb and flow of creating something. Creation is never easy. Creation takes effort. We always talk about in whole life architecture and in TMIC's work that we're committed to helping people relate to effort differently. Most people, their default intention is to avoid effort, right? One of them anyway, to avoid effort or to avoid, the perception of pain and discomfort. is another intention that drives people. And it's sort of programmed in our mind. It's just programmed that way. And so it takes effort to reset your consciousness, to reset your mindset, to reset your awareness, and to take responsibility for yourself and for your actions and how you're showing up. But when you do that, power is what starts to develop. And when you do that long enough, life starts to feel like it's just flowing, even though nothing may have changed on the outside.
The word power, especially in the way that you used it just a moment ago, could you say that it creates an energy? Because
It
I
does.
think when if I look back over my life and I look at the stages where I wasn't well the stage, not stages, but the stage where I wasn't connected to myself, the idea of being powerful felt not authentic. It
Mm,
felt like it was forced. It felt
mm,
like, well, you have to be a bitch. That's how
mm,
you earn respect. It was that type of power.
right.
But as you get to, there's like such a peace about knowing yourself.
Yeah.
That's, I feel like that's where this deep level of peace comes from. Just knowing yourself
Yeah.
and feeling so comfortable and so at peace with it that when you speak of power through that lens, it feels more like your natural God-given spirit power, spirit energy is what I
Hmm.
want to say. And it's like using that energy in a way that has impact instead of using that energy in a way that works against you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, first of all of us, everyone listening, everyone watching, are powerful. The essence of who we are is
Yes.
powerful, right?
Yeah.
We have our power conditioned out of us. At a very
Mhm.
young age, we're told how to think, how to behave, what to do, what to wear in order to gain approval from parents, family, friends, community, teachers, whatever. And because we also have this other thing going on as human beings where it's important to us to be connected to the group. We're social beings. And so quickly our own power becomes one of the bargaining chips that we're ready and willing to trade in for that validation. And when you're young and you haven't, like all of us, we were all in this place, you haven't spent the time to really know yourself, as Socrates said, right? The most important thing somebody can do in their life is to know thyself. This is why it's been commented so many times throughout human history. One of my favorites is Alice in Wonderland, when Alice is speaking to the caterpillar on the mushroom. Interesting that he's sitting on a mushroom. But anyway, and the caterpillar asks Alice, "Are you? This is the question. This is the
Mhm.
question." And when all of us are young, first of all, very few of us, unless our parents intentionally work with us on that and ask that question and help us think about that and process that, which very few parents do. Let's face it, most of us probably grew up with television as our babysitter, and nowadays it's an iPad or a phone, or right. And parents are just, our society is not properly set up, and that's a conversation we should have another day on the breakdown of the various systems and structures that have constituted our society and why we're in the moment we're in. But anyway, unless your parents actually spent the time to work with you on this question of who you are, knowing yourself, you didn't probably explore it all that deeply. Now, we naturally and intuitively kind of operated from that place. We would do things that were authentically us. And if it didn't bother anyone, it probably went just fine. And maybe that became something that stuck with us as we became adults. If it bothered someone, we were probably chastised for it.
Mhm.
And then that might have been the last time we ever did that, right? Because the validation thing is so we were taught from a very young age to give our power away. How? By not being our authentic self and by starting to angle ourselves toward an ego identity that was created with the sole intent of maintaining validation and the attention and the validation of other people. And so like I always say in the TMIC work, you're either bending to the world or the world is bending to you. People who are standing in their power, people who know themselves and are authentically being themselves and operating from that place, experience states of flow and power that other people don't. And those people who are experiencing those states of power and flow, those people you'll see, they tend to be more successful. What's the difference? They know themselves and doesn't matter what people are saying. They don't care. Haters are going to hate, as the saying goes. So, but you're not thinking that way. You're not thinking hate is going to hate when you're 6,
Yeah.
right? And the teacher or the gnarly uncle or the whatever is like, browbeating you for
Yes.
coloring on the wall or being yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
expressing yourself, exploring yourself.
Mhm.
So yeah, coming back to this idea of flow states, flow is just power, and you feel like you're in flow when you're empowered. And the way that you get empowered is to go inward and not outward. It's not about rearranging the outer world, like I call it, the furniture of your life, and trying to control all those variables of which none of us control. That's the insanity of the whole thing. Is so many of us spend much of our life trying to control things we cannot control, and it exhausts us, and it takes our energy, and who we're being about it isn't even our authentic self. It's an ego identity. And so this leads to the classic midlife crisis or whatever. So that's kind of the way I see it, is that if you want to get into a flow state, don't try to create the state around you. Just go inward, do the work we're talking about here and that we do with TMIC and in the whole life architecture program, and know yourself. And by the way, that's easier said than done, especially if you've got decades of being someone else
Mhm.
for validation and for attention. You're going to be completely confused until you're not. And you start to peel back the layers of that onion and go, damn, I loved doing this when I was, 7 or 8, why
Yes.
have I not been doing this? Or this is how I was, or I used to say things like this, or I used to think things like this. But, Mrs. Murphy told me I can't say that in class, or whatever. And so like we all have this story, but who cares? It's the past.
Yeah.
You got to drop the
Yeah.
story. You can be empowered now. You can be in flow now.
That's beautiful. We were talking earlier today about you got to give what you want. You got to give
Give to get.
to get. If you were talking about energy, you want more energy, just stamina throughout the day, energy, that you've got to give or exert that energy and exercise, and you
Yeah.
actually get more energy by
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
It feels counterintuitive. You
Yeah, it
mean I have
does.
to give the money that I have in order to get money that I want?
Hmm.
That whole thing
Hmm.
of people holding on to what they have so tightly, they squeeze the life out of it and don't have it at all.
Yeah.
Alanis Morissette talks about how ironic it is that when you let go, you have more than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's this whole idea that we should fear what is natural. It's
Hmm.
natural to give. It's natural to do that. It's because we live in an abundant world. We talked a lot about this in our meditation practices with the team.
Hmm.
A lot of it is focused around that.
Yeah.
And we're not taught that, even we're taught that it feels counterintuitive. That's what we're taught. We're not taught that it's our natural state of being and it's the natural laws of the universe. Think of the law of reciprocity and how all that
Hmm.
works.
Hmm.
It's interesting how the journey of I can only speak for myself, but the journey of really building a strong relationship with myself has brought in new knowledge and perspective about the world. How I see the world is so different now
Hmm.
than prior to doing the work.
Yeah, I'm going to give the credit to the YMCA years ago, when I was working out there at the gym, and I saw a poster, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it said something to the effect of the most effective way to get more energy is to give it away. And
Mm,
so that was a nod to exercise, right? You're expending energy, you're
yeah,
giving energy away when you're exercising. And by doing that, you get more. It's this weird thing.
it is.
Where's the flip? If you just kind of sat around and sat on the couch surfing Netflix for a year, you would be exhausted, even though you've done nothing. You would be physically exhausted. You
Yes.
probably have all kinds of disease and chronic pain and all kinds of stuff that's going on, right?
Mhm.
And how have we handled that, just as a side note, as a society? Because people want to avoid pain so much, we create pain relievers and we create drugs and we create things. It's not sourceful. You're not getting to the root of why you're in
Yeah.
pain. You're just masking the pain. And that's a metaphor, though. That's a real thing, but it's also a metaphor for other types of pain, not just physical pain,
Mhm.
right? What are the ways that we are constantly trying to avoid the discomfort of pain when that pain is really an amazing teacher? It's trying to nut, it's our body's signal to us that something we're doing is out of alignment, is not healthy for us, is not who we are. Emotional pain is, what we call negative emotions. We teach this in emotional sobriety work. It is your signal from your higher self, from your subconscious, that there's something that you're doing, or there's some person you're in relationship with, or there's some way that you're being or whatever that is out of alignment with who you authentically are. Now, the problem is that people react to that pain and they either do one of two things. They mask it, suppress it, hide it, drown it. It's known as the opioid epidemic. This is how it shows up, right?
Yes.
Opioid epidemic, depression, mental health issues. For a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, their mental health issues or their depression, is addressable by actually understanding the signal your body is sending and reorienting yourself towards a more authentic expression of who you are. It would actually start to resolve itself. Now, if you let it go long enough, then you start to create a compounding effect where the brain's chemistry actually starts to change. I was talking to a psychiatrist one time and he said virtually all depression, there are some exceptions, but virtually all depression is entirely fixable and treatable by adjustments in your life and lifestyle, beginning with your thought life, if you catch it early enough. So we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about power here,
Yes.
right? We're talking about power, and people who are suffering from depression, they have basically arrived at a state where they feel so powerless that they are trapped within their own bubble of themselves and they don't know how to get out. Well, coming back to the YMCA, you want to get energy, you want to get power, you got to give it away. And there's various ways that you can do that, which we won't get into today, but we talk about it in the work that we do. And so, yeah, I mean, we're a channel. Human beings are really meant to be stewards and channels of energy. And if you get energy, and that energy can be in the form of physical energy, it can be in the form of mental energy, emotional energy, it could be money. If you want more, you need to be the steward that channels it away from you into something that's of service to the world, and you're just going to get more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You want to, you want people to be kind to you. What do? Give away kindness and they reciprocate. You don't go and browbeat them over the head and say, be nicer to me, asshole. Not going to work.
No,
You
no.
know, so simple.
Yeah, it
I
is.
think we
It is.
taught our children treat others the way you want to be treated. Now, why would we teach them that? Because because of the law of reciprocity, they're going to get that back. It
Yes.
makes for a kinder world. Clearly, we haven't got the message.
I think about what makes me different in the arena of love and relationship, an intimate relationship. I used to talk to B about this. I don't know why I attract love so easily. And then, we have somebody in our life that has struggled to find love for years, have struggled to find love, thinking it's never going to happen for them. I'm unlovable or whatever the story is.
Mhm.
And I wonder, does it have something to do with that? Because I love to love. I'm not looking for love to fill me. I get filled by giving the love to somebody. That's
Yeah.
what fills me up. And it's,
Yeah.
of course, having the love back in return is like the cherry on top. Like that's
Right.
that's the greatest.
Right.
But the need to give that love is stronger than that need to receive the love.
Right. So look at what you said though. You're showing up with the intention, and it happens to come quite naturally for you
It
around this
does.
topic of wanting to be of service
Mm.
to others. And so you are giving the love away, right? I think Michael Jackson and the Jackson Five sang a song that has something to do with that. There's in the lyric.
Maybe.
Save the love, give the love you save, or something like that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Anyway, but so you get it back because you're giving it, and it just so happens that this comes easily to you. I think precisely because you obviously don't have some kind of hang up about not having enough love, so you're not like
Right.
hoarding it for yourself,
Yeah,
right?
no.
Right. But maybe you're doing that in other areas. I mean, we all
Maybe.
kind of have areas where we sort of that fear learn. It's a learned thing, but this fear creeps in, and we hoard something, and we think that by hoarding it we're protecting ourselves, but what we're actually doing is closing ourselves off to the if you want more, give it away. You give to get. So we're closing ourselves off to getting. We're closing ourselves off to getting by hoarding from a place of fear. So in the love category, not your problem. Maybe you have other areas, but yeah, everyone has at least one of these areas that they struggle with, or
Mm.
have had to struggle with, and some have more. But it's only when I think it was Peter Walsh, used to do some great work with people who were hoarders. People who would like literally hoard,
Yeah.
stuff in their house to the point where it was like stacked up in their living room and
Mm-hmm.
their kitchen. And the way he addressed it was he helped them understand that your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. And so your outer world is nothing but hoarding things, and it's messy and it's cluttered and it's right. Well, your mind and your emotions, the space of your emotions and your being is obviously trapped in fear, where you're holding everything in. You're probably not speaking your truth. You're probably not being your authentic self. You probably don't even know who that is. And so that's why, like in the whole life architecture work that we do, it's all about, I mean, our whole mission is to help people move from victim to powerful. I mean, that's really, if I can summarize it, what it really comes down to. We have predominantly a world of victims, blaming everyone else for their problems and reacting in hatred and violence and all kinds of different ways against all those people or those, forces out there. It's not me, it's them.
Mm-hmm.
We even do it in our own intimate relationships, Well, my husband or my wife or my girlfriend or my boyfriend, is them, is them, is them. It's never us. It's
Yeah.
never us.
Yes.
And yet, not, how's that working for you, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And so, like, when we do work around, relationship stuff with people, the irony is, people will go to like couples counseling and be like, well, he did this or she did this or whatever. And, hopefully the therapist will change them or say something that'll get them to change. And it's a great gig for a lot of couples therapists because, they'll talk you for years. And I'm not saying that there's no point to therapy, but there should also be an endpoint to it, and there
I
should be a result.
yeah.
So it's a great business model to kind of just keep people talking. But ultimately, this could be handled quite quickly if people were willing to look at themselves and to make the changes in themselves. Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. He didn't say, go make sure everyone else changes so you get the result you want in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we've done. And there's
Michael
no power
Jackson.
in that.
No, there is no power in that. Michael Jackson had said, I'm going to start with the man in the mirror.
Man in the mirror.
I'm going to start there.
That's where you start.
It is where we start.
What's so funny? This message is everywhere.
It is.
Like so many, so much of the wisdom that we really need to embody and live from. It's everywhere.
Mm.
And we love these songs and we love movies about this stuff. And we love to send some memes around and have some great quotes, but our lives are a fucking mess. So I understand it's especially difficult when you've spent decades being inauthentic.
Yes.
Trying to gain validation, trying to gain love, trying to gain acceptance, sending you further into a depressive cycle and spiral. It's affecting everything from your mental health to your physical health, to your emotions, to your ability to make money, to your ability to be in relationship with people. That's what it affects. And if you look at the state of the world, generally speaking, the evidence that people have not addressed this and are not doing the work they need to on themselves is all over the place. It's just all over the place.
But we were talking about other countries and how the culture is so different. Here in America, we're not as family focused.
No.
You see a lot of the Hispanic families are very family oriented, and I can say in my own experience that even within the Black community, there's a family feel that
Mm-hmm.
I have a small family, so it's
Yeah.
it's difficult. And I would say that when more of my family was around, we were also a very tight knit family. Who's left is we're tight, but it's small.
Yeah.
And bringing back and shifting the culture. And I truly believe that what we're doing with TMIC is that shift, is the ability to be a part of that shift and play a really big role in that shift. I absolutely don't believe that out of 8 billion people, we're the only ones trying to push this agenda
No.
of living from a life by design and being more intentional about how we're living and really focusing on the things that matter the most.
Yeah.
And shifting our culture. And I just want to bring forces together with other communities and other people who are doing that. And I believe that what we're doing will play a really big role in helping our culture to shift. How wonderful that would be.
No question. Yeah. No, we need a lot of people to join. So part of TMIC's mission is to be a community of communities, an organization of communities, like-minded, ones that share the same values and and are tired of playing an old game of what's in it for me and screw everyone else. So yeah, I absolutely agree. And we're unequivocally and unafraid to say that the road is ahead is going to take effort, but it's worth it, you
Mhm.
know? I mean, it was Albert Einstein who said, the definition of insanity. We've all heard it, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I think humanity's been doing that for the better part of, I don't know how many millennia, thinking that if we try to control the world out there and we rearrange the furniture out there, that somehow we'll finally get this thing under control
Mhm.
and damn it, it'll go our way, right? Well, that's just ego. And what we've done as a society is we have, at least in the West and particularly in the United States, which is probably where the dominant thread of this culture has come from, and it's leaked into the UK and Australia and Canada and other places like that, is put the individual as paramount. What I want is what matters. Well, when you have a whole society who want different things, even if you just wanted, if there were 5 different things that you wanted, and if everyone was only looking out for themselves, there's not going to be much agreement. You're just setting yourself up for all kinds of conflict. And so again, putting the focus on not on you in terms of what you want and your identity, but rather getting connected to who you are and then connecting that authentic person to other people and building community. That's how we're going to get out of this and how we're going to kind of move society along. And it doesn't mean that the individual is unimportant. It's a paradox. It's both and. We have to attend to the needs of the individual by helping the individual understand who they are, helping them access their power, and maybe for the first time in their life. And the individual also has a responsibility to the community and the group. And we've lost that. We've lost that sense of responsibility. We've swung all the way to one side of this
Mhm.
paradigm, to the extreme, where the individual is all that matters. And I think we're in a time right now where people are starting to wake up. We were talking about this earlier, this sort of movement that's starting to happen where people they're just getting mentally and physically and energetically exhausted by the world that we've all co-created, passively or intentionally. And you're seeing people wanting to live off the grid, build these little micro communities of people with shared values and things like that. And that is a reaction to the extreme paradigm that we found ourselves in, where the individual is paramount. And people are starting to realize this isn't working very well for us.
Mhm.
But it does begin with the self. It begins with looking at oneself, knowing oneself, answering the question that Alice was asked by the caterpillar, who are you? I know it sounds almost like trite and philosophical. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are like, I need to be practical. This is the most practical thing you could do for your life to improve the trajectory of it, to access your own power, get access to that power, and start living a life, creating and living a life by design versus by default, is to know yourself. But most people will not do that work because it's terrifying.
Oh,
What are you
it's
going to uncover?
uncomfortable.
It's very
It's
uncomfortable.
it's uncomfortable. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is very uncomfortable, but I can't think of anything more in the world that's worth it. It's so worth it to go through that little moment of discomfort from time to time, because the discomfort doesn't happen every single time you work on yourself. Sometimes you have wonderful feelings when you work on yourself, and other times you have to address hard things. And it's really hard to go back and to visit some of the stuff, but you're revisiting it to reevaluate it, to heal
Yeah.
it, better understanding about it so that you can
Yeah.
move forward. And you can see that the lack of doing that often manifests in addiction
Or
and that,
disease.
or in dis-ease in the body, dis-ease in the body. Yes, because we heard it. The body keeps the score, I believe, is the name of the book.
Yeah.
Author's slipping me, but we'll link it into the blog
Yeah.
here. A phenomenal book. I mean, it really is so grounding to and helping to create awareness of where are we holding on to things and where are
Hmm.
we storing that in our body.
Yeah.
You had introduced me to a woman, Judy, who does
Somatic
somatic
work.
work.
Yeah.
Yes, she was my first experience that I've had of that. And I was amazed at where I was storing an experience from 12 years old was still
Hmm.
stuck in my body. It totally took me by surprise. I was not expecting that to happen
Yeah.
that way, but
Yeah.
boy, did I feel better once it got out of there.
Yeah.
Oh, I felt so good once it left my body.
Yeah. Now, there's a clear connection between chronic pain or disease with our repressed mental and emotional states. And it's our body trying to get us to wake up. It's our mind trying to get us to wake up, our emotions, and be our authentic self, be whole, because that's where we're powerful. I mean, just look at it. How much power does a cripple have? How much power does someone who's suffering from depression that's just dogging them? How much power do they have?
Mhm.
Nothing. So you just revert, it's not rocket science. You just reverse how you got to that state. You got to that state by repressing and suppressing your own needs, your own desires, your own self-expression, your own articulation of the self in the world and being true to who you are. That's how you got there. And it builds up over time. It didn't just surprise you one day. This takes years to build up, and therefore it also takes years and effort to unwind and to
Absolutely.
recalibrate things.
Yes, yes.
But it's worth the effort. There's nothing, I think it was Nietzsche said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but that there's nothing more valuable in the world than knowing yourself. There's nothing. For those of you who think, what does it have to do with my business? Everything.
Everything, everything.
Because who you are created that business.
Yes. It's funny. I asked one of my coaches that one time. I went to her because I wanted to improve my leadership skills. I wanted to be a stronger leader, a better leader. And when I set that intention, she goes, well, let's look at some of this trauma. I'm like, well, what does that have to do with this? Everything. It has
Mhm.
everything to do with it. And I didn't understand it until I started experiencing that leadership is a natural, it's a thing that comes from the essence of us.
Yeah.
And if it's all crowded by all kinds of weird stories and trauma and stuff like that, it becomes inauthentic, going back again to
Yeah.
the authenticity of power and the inauthenticity of
Yeah.
power. And it was like magic
Yeah.
that as I felt more connected to myself, I felt more connected to the people around me, which then
Right.
made me a better leader.
Yeah.
And I still want to improve my leadership. I still want to improve that. So
Yeah.
there's more stuff to uncover. It's in
There's
layers.
much more stuff to
Yes,
uncover.
much
Well, I think
more.
this was a good start talking about power and flow. That was your main question, was flow. I relate to flow as just powerful because you feel powerful when you're in flow. And the
Empowered.
more powerful you are, the more life flows, and the more life
Yes.
flows, the more powerful, and it becomes this new thing.
Yes. A new vicious cycle, but in
We
a
like that one.
welcoming way. Yes.
Yeah. We're always going to be in some cycle. You're never going to
Yeah.
escape it. You're either in a cycle that is tearing you down and is making you weak, or you're in a cycle that is building you up and making you powerful.
Hmm.
And we call that
Thank
flow when it's powerful.
you. Yes.
Well, appreciate everyone joining us again for this episode of The Most Important Conversations. If this topic interested you and you found it insightful and enlightening, we'd encourage you to go and check out our website, tmicglobal.com or themostimportantconversations.com, and enroll in Whole Life Architecture. That's a great place to start on your journey towards power. It'll affect your business, your family life, your relationships, your health.
Mm.
Everything gets affected once you get this course corrected.
Your
So
bank account.
your bank account.
Yes,
Yeah. Well, if
totally.
your business is working, and if you
Yes.
don't have a business and think about it, an empowered person working in a company is going to show up and outperform everyone else, and they're going to get the promotion.
Or different opportunities pop into their life.
Yeah.
Listen, we had somebody on our call just immediately pivot into a totally different direction of their life,
Yeah.
which was so magical to watch somebody like we're having these conversations with them and we're on a train of, and then all of a sudden he goes, that's not really what I want to do. My heart
Yeah.
is actually over here.
Yeah, yeah. This was
Just like that.
someone who was doing the whole life architecture work.
Yeah.
And after something like 30 years, a career in one area, announced that he's walking from that career and is starting the thing he actually really loves and has wanted to do it ever since he was, I don't know, I guess a teenager, I don't know
Yeah.
when, and decided that for him to be authentic, he needed to do this. And he did it, and he shared it with us from a place of power. Like, that doesn't work for me anymore. This is what I'm
Oh,
doing.
it was
Right?
beautiful. It was
Yeah.
so clean and real, and just when he said it, you could feel that was his truth. It was so clear. He was so
Yeah.
clear on that you
Yeah.
felt that clarity coming off
Yeah.
of him and that excitement of like, finally,
Well,
I'm living who I really am.
yeah. And clarity comes from power. When you're
Yes.
powerful, you just speak clear. This is it. You're not equivocating,
Mm,
you know?
beautiful.
So, yeah. And he didn't care what anyone thought,
Nope.
or if people were disappointed. He was just like, enough,
Yeah.
and
Too bad
he's
for
in, I don't
you.
know, I'm guessing 50s, I'm guessing something like
Maybe.
that. I don't know his
Yeah.
exact age, but so it's never too late. That's the reason I bring that up. It's never too late to align with your authentic self. It's never too late. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. This has been a great episode, and we look forward to seeing you again on our next episode of the Most Important Conversations. Until then, go check out tmicglobal.com and get yourself enrolled in whole life architecture and tap into that power. But we'll talk to you next time.
That concludes this episode of the Most Important Conversations. This in-depth conversation could set you on the path to self-improvement, which is essential if you want to be an effective leader and take meaningful action in your life. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of these stimulating discussions, you can find them at tmicglobal.com. Remember, the world is at a crossroads right now. You can't afford to waste this opportunity to take charge of your life, build meaningful relationships with others, and co-create a brighter tomorrow. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.